here we have the pieces of the fairy as we're stuck beginning. So we have drawn out the head and the body, and this is the bit that is drawn here is the actual sewing line. So I have sewn that with the sewing machine round to here, left this opening, and this will be turned inside out. Snip here at the corners just into the stitch line, but try not to cut the stitch line, okay, to give you a nice roundness when you turn it inside out. The eyes and the mouth I have drawn on that you'll still be able to see those for position reasons when this is turned inside out. So when the body is turned inside out, it is stuffed 3/4 of the way down, and then what I do is I add a weight inside it so that it stands. When you stand your fairy up, she will stand nice and steady. So I'm using those little white pebbles. You can use stones out of a fish tank or whatever, and I'll show you that when I have that done. The arms, 2 of, are marked to the stuffing line, okay, so you can see that. You turn this inside out, again maybe snipping around the areas where you want it to turn in a nice rounded shape. Turn that inside out and stuff to the stuffing line, okay, and I have done this one. And you can see the stuffing line there, and the stuffing's just a little bit before it. It's a bit fidgety to do, but use a knitting needle or something to push your stuffing in. Okay. And then you're going to put your arm inside a sleeve. So the sleeve is the tubular piece that I have given you. It is sewn up that side, okay, with the machine. And what I have done is the bit that I want to go as the collar around her hand, I've just turned it under about 1/4 of an inch, and I do a running stitch right round that. Keep your thread attached at the end so that you can pull that round the hand. So I'm going to demonstrate that now. Okay, I'll put the hand in here. This is probably the most complicated piece of the fairy, is actually doing the hand. Okay, so a lot of people have taken the end of the sleeve to the end of the stuffing line. That's not correct. Bring the sleeve down, just have like maybe 3/4 of an inch where the hand is. And I have my needle and thread still attached, so I'm going to pull and have that, and the seam there running in the middle. Okay, you can see the seam, and you can see then that that is flat at the top. That's not stuffed the whole way up. So I'm just going to running stitch around the end of the little sleeve. I'm going to pull that in, just put it up a little bit. And I always use a double thread so that it doesn't break when you pull it in, which gives you the gathers around the hand. And then I'm just going to secure that into the actual hand itself. And then I run a stitch round, making sure that I'm catching into the hand to secure the sleeve onto the arm itself. Okay, so I've stuffed the body, good and firm stuffing, and have it stuffed about 3/4 of the way in. So just using your stuffing, I'm using this white or the inside of a cushion if you're no longer using an old cushion. Let's repurpose these things and look after our planet. So I'm stuffing her, and I've got my little putty bag of stones or weights or dried peas or rice, whatever you're using. I'm slipping that in so that it will sit flat. So I'm putting it into the bottom here, and then I'll position it. Okay, I've kept it inside that net bag that it's in. And I'll just put that there, that it's fairly much at the bottom. I'll just put a handful of stuffing after that so that that's not going to be against the fabric. It's going to keep it soft. Okay, I'm then going to over sew this opening closed. All right, and when you've that done, bring this corner and that corner together. And that creates a round bottom for the body of the angel, and she'll sit good and steady. She'll not fall. Okay, stitch the little cuff around it, and that's good and secure. So we go up to this end now, and that's the flat end of your arm, and I want you to put it against the seam end of the sleeve. So that's the seam end of the sleeve, and then I'm going to do a running stitch to include that only on one side of the sleeve. Okay, so I'll put a running stitch around that, catching the actual arm into it. Okay, threads galore here, and just do a running stitch then the rest of the way around the, probably not the way I should be doing running stitch, but for the purposes of the camera it's much easier to see. Okay, so keep the running stitch going just up around the edge there, and this is just to gather the sleeve at the top in order to form a puffy sleeve. Okay, again gather it round, put your thread in. Okay, I should really be using a black thread to let you see this, but hopefully you'll be able to keep track of what I'm doing. Run the running stitch right round until you're back to where you started, and then I want you to pull that in fairly tight, that it all almost comes to the back where the seam is. Okay, it kind of naturally falls into that area. Pull that tight, and then just run a few stitches over that to keep that in place. Okay, so I'm just doing a couple of over stitches there, and that it's all very rough, but this is the bit that you're using the glue gun for at the end, and or stitching that into the body of the doll. Okay, and that forms a little puff sleeve. Okay, and leave those to the side until you have the dresses and petticoats completed. Very completed to this point, where I have her collar, her lace collar on. I've put a little apron on, and I've just attached that underneath to each side of her head. The dress underneath attaches to the back and is left open, and the petticoat is underneath that and is attached halfway up the body, just to bring it to the right level where it sits on the base. So I have 2 sleeves completed, and this is what your sleeves will look like when you have them completed. Okay, they're created into a puff, and the knot is going to be at the back of them where your back seam is. I'm just going to add some glue to that now. If you're stitching it on, this is where you'll stitch into the dress, and you will be applying the sleeve to the neckline. Okay, so I'm just going to show you the position of putting the sleeve on. I'm going to go ahead with that process. I'm going to add the glue onto where the gathered fabric is. Oh, hopefully yours will not run as much as mine. And just attach the sleeve on there, keeping the puff if you can. Okay, so it's coming down the side of the head and onto the lace collar or the neckline of the dress. And I'll do that again on the other side, just trying to get your both arms into as near a position that is exact as possible. And I'm going to put that into this side. Okay, and again keeping my puff, and just press that in until that glue takes. All right, so that should be that in position, and I'll just leave that to dry. And as you can see, I haven't added the hair yet. That's the last thing that I'm going to do. But this is her starting to take shape, and if you've used pinking shears, you can trim around the apron, you can trim around the dress. I've just frayed this one due to not having pinking shears here, and I've actually hemmed the petticoat because I don't have pinking shears again. But you can add lace to any of these, and I just get my lace here. if you want to add a piece of lace to the apron, or if you want to add it to the dress, you can, or the petticoat. It's all an option. I've put a little handmade button, but you can put a star button or a little button that's fancy just here in the corner of the apron. The apron is 5 inches height-wise by 10 inches that way, or you can make it smaller. It doesn't have to be exactly that, but that's the approximate measurements of it. And you can see her arms are now in place. They might look a bit long because she hasn't got her hair on yet, but don't forget we're going to either position these with holding a little hymn book, or we're going to have her hand glued up to the mouth as if she's yawning. It's all an option. Okay ladies, so my doll is reaching completion here. I've just drawn her face and add a bit of colour to her. I will do the hair with you next week, and she hasn't had a trim yet, but I have her hair attached with the glue gun. I have this one here that I've been demonstrating with, and hopefully I'll put her together next week. If anyone has problems, they can ask me questions. We'll get your angel together in next week's class. I hope you haven't found it too difficult and that the video explains things fairly simply for you. And I'm really looking forward to next week and to see all the finished items and we've added nicely to the population. Have a nice week, ladies, and stay safe. Take care. Bye.